We're speaking a little bit outside of our area right now, but I think that we know enough
to be dangerous.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today, we're talking about whether or not you should create a trust to hold your firearms in. Now, hard stop right here. Not an NFA trust, right? Because we generally know the answer to that question. But we get calls all the time about whether or not you need to create a trust just for your regular old firearms. And we have pretty strong opinions about this. But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button. And let's get rolling. Richard, what is a trust?
Yeah, just very quickly, a trust is just a legal entity that holds property for the benefit of another person. And so these appear on paper. They don't get filed with the government. They don't get filed with your state. They don't get filed with the federal government generally. And so these are just kind of this legal entity. They hold property. It affects the way that the property, the ownership then belongs to the entity. And so it kind of changes property rights a little bit. But we see these things as being very, very popular for NFA gun trusts. Those are extremely popular because, going back just a little bit, generally somebody with a tax stamp, only one person can possess that NFA item. So I have a suppressor, tax stamp, it's registered to me as an individual. Well, I would be the only person who could possess it legally. But the NFA gun trusts make this kind of nice, broad, expansive power where you could have multiple designated individuals allowed to possess the same item. So we see a lot of popularity with these NFA gun trusts.
And I mean, go back in time, 5 years.
Yes.
Time is meaningless to me because we've been doing this for so long. But I think about 5 years, they were incredibly popular for NFA items for very good reason, because you want to get your suppressor, you want to get your, short barrel rifle. You actually didn't have to do the background check, fingerprint requirement, notifying your chief law enforcement officer. All of that, those hoops were not required for corporate ownership or trust ownership. Of course, now they're required for everyone. So the benefits have even lessened a little bit for NFA items, but it used to be, a big deal. And I think that's kind of why this idea of owning things in trust still exists in the ether the way that it does, with such ferociousness, right?
And we have frequently asked questions to a bunch of NFA gun trust questions. That's be linked down in the description below. But to answer the general question, hey, are NFA gun trusts still a good idea? The general guidance is yes. I still think that they're still a good idea. But we get these questions and calls in from folks all the time saying, hey, I just want to hold my guns, not NFA items. I just want to hold my guns in a trust. And is that a good idea? And I think the answer to that is a little bit different.
Yeah. And I guess we should say, is it an outright bad idea? I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. It's just a pointless idea. But Richard actually is kind of a don't document your stuff person. So you might disagree with me.
I kind of think it's a little bit of a bad idea. We can talk about it, why. But I think your first point is exactly right. It might just be kind of a needless expense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it costs money, first of all.
Yeah.
Get a lawyer. It's just, why? I say this as someone who benefits, from it, but why pay a lawyer if you don't have to?
Right. No, exactly right. And you'll have a lot of unscrupulous lawyers who'll say, oh, yeah,
I'll do it for you.
Yeah, I'll do it for you. But, most of the time, if I had a client call and say, hey, I'd like to set up just a regular gun trust, I'm going to say, save your money, because it's just kind of a needless expense. The other reason why I think it might be a bad idea, and I think we pretty much agree, why it might be a bad idea, I think it does create this false sense of security. Let's say somebody goes from being a lawful possessor to maybe they're a prohibited person, and maybe they're prohibited under state law. They would not be allowed to possess firearms. Well, I don't own the gun, so, this doesn't affect me that these things are held in trust, and I just don't think that's true.
No. And, I think people, they look at it, and the primary concern, I think, with people is, well, I want to make things easier when I die. And it really doesn't. The thing is, when you die, your guns are already a fairly easy proposition out in the world, right? Because they are just your property. They're like anything else. It's like your TV, they're like virtually anything else you own. They can be transferred in just the residuary of your will, right? Whatever your personal property is, whoever it goes to can go to that person. You can designate those items as specific property in your will to pass to specific persons.
That's the best practice, I think.
It is, right? Because, there's just, if parts of your estate have to be liquidated to pay debts, your specific bequests are either the last or one of the last things to be, I don't do
it's the last, I think.
Probate. Okay, there we go. So, we're speaking a little bit outside of our area right now, but I think that we know enough.
To be dangerous.
Yeah, if any probate lawyers are watching, you can comment and tell us where we are mistaken. But I think we're good on that one. And of course, the people you leave your property to have to be qualified to own and possess firearms. But those willed, firearms or firearms that pass through your estate are not subject to the normal federal transfer laws. So it actually is pretty easy to just die and leave your guns to someone, right?
Yeah. But to, say, why it might be a bad idea, I think you hit the nail on the head. Needless cost, unnecessary documentation, and it doesn't really provide any extra security outside of, I think it's a false sense of security folks have, but that's all separate and apart from National Firearms Act trusts. Those are still a very good idea, and there's a whole lot of speculation, especially with the pistol arm brace rule that might be coming here in December 2022, why getting an NFA gun trust is a good idea. Now, these things are a little more complicated than you might first imagine. Thankfully, we have an entire video breaking down, are NFA gun trusts a good idea in 2022? Check it out right here. And until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.